Welcome to the Dealing with Goliath podcast. The mission of Dealing with Goliath is to sharpen the psychological edge in negotiation, ethical influencing, and high impact conversation for business leaders who want to be more effective under pressure, uncover hidden value, and build greater connection, all while increasing profitability. This is the short form espresso shot of insight podcast interview to boost business performance using our 5 questions in a roundabout 15 minutes format. My guest today is Christopher Salem. Chris is an accomplished CEO, business growth strategist, professional keynote speaker, award-winning author, business trainer, and radio show host and media personality, dedicated to empowering businesses to boost their brands and business simultaneously, from ordinary to extraordinary. His goal is straightforward: to help serious business owners foster better workplace environments that lead to higher engagement and retention with staff, while generating more clients, increasing customer experiences, and scaling their overall revenue and profits quickly and inexpensively. Over the years, he's developed a keen understanding of the complex issues facing small business owners. His experience has helped him develop skills to educate business owners quickly and effectively to successfully apply the right strategies in the correct order, allowing them to grow their business to its maximum capacity. His book, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity, went international bestseller in 2016. He also co-authored the recent edition to Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield. His weekly radio show, Sustainable Success, is part of the Voice America Influencers channel and Business Influence with Tal Radio, part of the Touch of Life Foundation. Wow, Chris, there's a huge amount of talking points right there. Welcome to the show.
Well, Alistair, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's absolute pleasure to have you. So let's dive straight in. So there's a lot going on there. So who would you say is your ideal client, and what's the biggest challenge they tend to face?
Well, for me, the ideal client is someone that understands that there is a problem. They, instead of, managing the problem, they recognize that they're looking to do something, finally to do something about it, to find a solution. So they have to be open-minded and they have to be coachable, because if they're not open-minded and coachable, then it's going to be very difficult to not only address the problem, but then together create a solution that will allow them to, find a more sustainable path towards the results that they're seeking. So really important for me, it has to be that they're right? They have to recognize there is a problem, open-minded, and be coachable.
Excellent. I have to ask, you must have at this stage in your career with all the experience, you must have a whole load of little tick boxes, or the opposite, red flags, as to when people are not so coachable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I make very, very clear with people is if they're looking to check off a box or manage the problem, I'm not their guy.
Okay. That is very interesting. Because the question is, a lot of the audience might be listening, and they might be in that pre-stage. They could be a prospect of yours potentially down the line. But what are some of the common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem just before they come to you? What are they trying to do that's not working for them?
Well, what I find is a lot of times they're just trying to manage the problem and kind of like check off a box, cover their ass, as the acronym, CYA. Because in order to really address a problem, you have to be transparent. You have to be open. You have to be able to admit what is the situation for what it is. What is the role that I play in here? What are the strengths? What are my weaknesses? And assess that for everybody else that's involved, so we can see how we can go about fixing it. Another issue would be that a lot of times people tend to get caught up in the control they can't control. They're not focused on what they can control. This is why we experience the feeling of being worried, feeling stressed, feeling anxious, being frustrated. And so you have to recognize the situation for what it is, not what you think it should be. So that's what's very, very important, how you think first, to look at the situation for what it is. What can I do to maximize it, and make sure that I'm being transparent and vulnerable and open to do something to correct it, versus looking at it for what it should be. And this is where people tend to kind of check boxes, kind of not avoid, certain things, exposing themselves and that type of thing.
Very interesting, because it sounds like, as you said, a lot of people might fall into that avoidance mentality. Oh, it's difficult, it's messy.
Not my problem. Until
Somebody else,
management does something, I'm not going to do anything. People are looking for the change outside of themselves, not from within. Change comes from within, regardless if other people are involved. You can't control that. You have to change, be that change yourself.
I love that, because it's such great wisdom. It's something I've heard from quite a few different directions lately, and it's just reminded me the same, that if you want to change, if you want to look at how to move towards solutions, start with yourself. Start with what is in you that's potentially contributing to the problem, and go from there. So I love that, because it sounds like you require a certain level of, firstly, of humility in your clients, but also a certain level of self-reflection mixed with that.
Yeah.
They're able to actually say, okay, where am I? Because nobody's perfect. But
nobody's perfect. Nobody, regardless of title. And just what you said, Alistair, it starts with self-awareness, because without self-awareness, we can't, because I can't change what you're going to do. I can't control what you're going to do if we are working together. I can only control what I can do, and then be the example and be a resource for that, for you to do for yourself, and vice versa. This is what creates an interdependent work environment or culture, that where people can come together to complement one another, not depend upon each other.
I love that. As you said, it's that complement. Where, as you said, you used a great word there earlier, which is that vulnerability. And I'm a great believer in strength through vulnerability. People feel vulnerable from vulnerability, but it's actually it's nearly a superpower if you can do it in the right way, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, I grew up, where I was led to believe that vulnerability was a weakness, and it took me over 31 years after I would turn. I think it took me 3 years to realize, after I started this transformation with myself, to realize that vulnerability was a strength. And without being vulnerable, how could I get to the root cause of the things that were holding me back, in order to now correct them, and then, change my way of thinking to, improve my skills, prove the way I look at things, how I think, and how I take action to move forward.
Excellent. And it sounds like that ties in very much with, as a key principle, right at the base, for how you have that greater staff retention, how you have the greater customer or client retention. Does it play right through across the board?
Yes. I mean, again, the thing about, if you're looking to, incite change, you have to be that example, regardless of title. You have to take that responsibility to be that change for yourself. How can you look at things and think in a different way? It starts with the way we think. Many people are programmed to operate from expectations, and expectations are caught up with attachments, emotional attachments to results and outcomes. But what ends up happening is, with expectations, we put more emphasis and power into the things that we can't control, situations and other people. And because you're in the past and the future with that, fear thrives there. So you're operating from fear in the past and the future, rather than the moment, when it's better to operate from intentions, not expectations, because that allows me to now to focus on what I can control, trusting the process of what I can control, what I can't control, that will lead to the results that I seek.
Sounds like there's a lot of awareness of presence, both, being in the present tense. But as you said, it's that danger, as you said, of living too much in the past or in the future. As you said, that's where the fear resides.
Yes. And that's what, and unfortunately, how most people live their lives, and how most organizations run, is by fear. And people don't realize that they're thinking this way in the past and the future. They have emotional attachments to the outcome and results. That's what the expectation is. But what they don't realize is they're putting more power and emphasis and energy into the control they can't control. And this is why people react to situations instead of respond. Big difference.
Oh, let's clarify that one, because I love it. Yeah, because of course we don't want to be too reactive, but what would you then describe the difference as respond versus react? That's a great point, Chris.
Well, because we can control our emotions. There are 5 things we can control as human beings: our communication to ourselves and others, behavior, attitude. It's happening for you, not to you. Emotions, learning how to respond versus react in action. What respond means is that if something happens that might trigger an emotion, it might be that it upsets you, you're angry. It's okay to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with that. You're angry. But instead of now reacting from that primary emotion of anger, which is not going to help the situation, whether if you verbally come back or type an email in response back, in this case, you're reacting, I can pause and take a breath and say, what can I control in this situation? What can I not control? Now, if I feel composed enough to now respond from a secondary emotion, positive, then I can. If I have to remove myself for 10 minutes, I remove myself, come back. If I have to sleep on it, come back the next day, I can do that. But I find that when we can respond rather than react from a positive emotion, doesn't mean we negate the negative emotion that you're experiencing. We're able to be better problem solvers and create solutions and better ideas from those situations or where people are involved.
Definitely. I mean, because the anger, you used anger as an example, or disappointment, or whatever that emotion
Disappointment,
can be,
frustration.
Whatever, but as you said, people like anger because you feel empowered. But as you said, you're not very creative when you're angry.
You're not creative. You're just, it's like if there was a fire, you're just pouring more gas on it. That's all it is.
And I love that distinction, and it's a great one to point out to the audience. So thank you for that, you're choosing your response rather than just living in the reaction. So, which, as you said, it's getting you out of fight or flight as well.
It is.
So
that pause, there is a power in the pause. Just take a breath. And then if you feel like, hey, I can respond favorably from a secondary emotion. And like I said, it gives you now time to address the primary emotion on your own. If you have to deal with some of if you feel upset and angry, again, you might be able to calm yourself down and see it for what it is, not what you think it should be. When people react from negative emotions, it's because of what they think it should be, instead of looking at a situation for what it is and then maximizing what you can control with it.
I love it, because it puts you back in control.
Yes.
Well, what you can control, as you said.
What you can control. Not that you can control everything, but yes.
Yeah, it's like that, you can't control the river, but you can get on the boat and steer. And that's what we're doing a lot of the time. Excellent. And I love that because, a lot of my clients, as a lot of my people that follow are in and around a lot of negotiation. And it's something that great negotiators often push their buttons. They can find the buttons to get emotional for these things. And it is exactly that, being able to play, being able to roll with that and get into the higher self, as you say, out of the fight or flight, into the higher self, to make those more creative, sometimes even playful decisions, to be much more your best self. So that's excellent stuff. So what might be one valuable free action that the audience could implement that will help with these issues? So this may not solve the problem, but at least put them looking in the right trajectory. And we've touched on quite a few there already.
Yeah. I mean, there are many different resources. I mean, if you work for a company, you could tap into your EAP, your Employee Assistance Provider resources, for things on emotional and mental well-being. There are a lot of resources on that even pertaining to emotional wellness. You can download Calm or Headspace and just learn about how can you learn to be present? How can you learn to retrain your mind to think in the moment rather than the past and the future? Because if you find yourself anxious, worried, frustrated on a regular basis, that is just a telltale sign you're operating in the past and the future to expectations, and you're, again, looking at things for what you think it should be rather than what it is. Bring it into the moment. Focus on intentions instead, and just trust the process that things will work out if you focus on what you can control. That's it. So Calm and Headspace offer some free resources for yourself that you can learn to be more present.
Absolutely. It's such a great point, that the Headspace, mindfulness exercise, it only has to be 10 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be, half an hour or anything. And as you said, scientifically proven to create that space so that we're just less reactive and more, as you say, able to choose our response to whatever comes up during the day. So it's such a great point. literally putting you back in control. So I think it's worth that 10 minutes a day, whatever it is. What is it, $10 a month or something? Is nothing. So best $10 you might spend. Excellent. So what might be one valuable free resource that you could direct people to that will help with that issue? Because you have an awful lot of wealth of things on your
Yeah.
website, and you have your books and your radio show. Is there anything in particular that maybe they could check out?
With me, I mean, with me, it's just connecting with me.
Okay.
I mean, and there's no obligation at all. Even though I'm a coach, there's no obligation. I love to meet new people. And a lot of times I'm just sharing. I'm sharing. And if I get to know somebody and I can share something, it can maybe plant a seed to maybe get you to think about something that you can change and how you look at things, to what we're talking about here. So there are plenty of different resources, but I always find that when we can have conversations with people that have made these changes and have been operating from this way of thinking for a long time, those are the best people to surround yourself with. And I know I did with people that taught me, and I'm simply just giving it back.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. That's fantastic. So, what would be your number one insight or principle on how to negotiate? And by negotiate, I mean that's sort of more the human side that I talk about, building
Yes.
better rapport and connection, uncovering hidden value and opportunity with your counterparts. Do you have any particular thoughts that you often give to your clients around that?
Yeah, I would just say that again, when you talk to people, ask questions.
Hmm.
Ask a question. Even if you're looking to, when you're looking to build rapport and get to know somebody, what's really important to them? What is their challenge? Maybe they're not sure what's important to them, what their challenge. But by asking questions, you can uncover this information. This could be with colleagues, somebody you work for, customers. But here's what's even better, especially for people that are in sales. You can still interject what you're looking to come across in terms of something that they can benefit from what you're offering, but do it through the power of questions. When you tell people things or, direct certain things at people, they're going to put walls up. But if we can now ask a question, look them in the eye, and listen, truly listen to relate and understand, it's quite powerful. It builds rapport. And when you build rapport, you're more likely to now people feel more comfortable, more vulnerable in a healthy way to now open up so we can find out where are the bottlenecks, where are the problems, things that are getting in between us that are not making us be able to work efficiently together. Now we can solve what that is to move forward, and for customers to feel more comfortable with us, that we can uncover what's really important to them to help them move forward as well.
That's outstanding advice, Chris. Because yeah, you're spot on. I love that, asking the questions, listening. What you said earlier, being present, listening to the answer, because those are the stepping stones. That rapport is what builds trust, and that's when you get to the real picture of, as you said, of the real, whatever your customer or client's real problem or struggles or challenges are, and how you can actually help them effectively. So that's outstanding advice. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Chris. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute education in the short time we've been speaking. So thank you so much for that.
Alistair, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to serve your audience here today.
Outstanding. So last quick question, where can people reach out to find you? I'll link to, obviously, your LinkedIn below.
Yeah,
I
I'll
see you're
give,
very active
yeah.
there.
LinkedIn is a great place to connect. I mean, it's just, kind of informal way to connect. I have two websites, ChristopherSalem.com and then also sustainablesuccess.net. But I would say LinkedIn is a great way, or we can connect by email at chris@ChristopherSalem.com.
Super stuff. And all those links, of course, will be beneath the podcast and beneath the video. So do reach out. He has some remarkable stuff on his website, and check out the books and the radio shows. Huge amount of value there. So, Chris, thank you so much.
Alistair, thank you so much for having me.